the child of day and the child of night. These two hated each other so much that their ancient feud spilled over into humanity. That conflict is still alive today. Now, cut to the chaos in the city. The spotlight's on Ralph, better known as the Clown. This guy is an A-rank villain class summoner. And right now, he's putting on a show. Using his skill death ball, he's blowing up police cars like they're cheap toys. And Ralph's chaos spreads fast. Other villains crawl out of the shadows, robbing banks, tearing through the streets. It's a full-on villain parade. Then, like it couldn't get worse, a school bus rolls up. But instead of kids, it's packed with Ralph's crew, hauling bags of stolen cash. Oh, and they've got hostages, the governor's wife and child. The wife begs them to let her child go. But these guys have no values. They shove her aside. Just when it looks hopeless, one of the criminals speaks up, ordering them to release the child. A traitor among them? That's a twist. Now for some lore, in this world, people awaken powers. Some use them for greed, becoming villains. Those born with the blood of the night child are the villains. On the other side, you've got the Psykers, born with the blood of the day child. They're the ones humanity rallies behind. And standing right here, in the middle of this mess, is one of them. Our protagonist, Cassian Lee, S-rank striker. The moment Ralph lays eyes on Cassian, he knows the show's over. Cassian's hot-headed, and he doesn't waste time. Flames roar, villains burn, and Ralph's grand performance ends in fire. After the chaos with Ralph, the media couldn't stop talking about Cassian. Headlines everywhere painted him as reckless, brutal, too violent for a psyker. The Commission on Human Rights stepped in, filing an official request to LAMPAS, the National Psyker Organization. At the Washington branch, S-rank Tuppence Schiller asked if he was a villain. Cassian fired back, saying villains don't deserve mercy. But his actions had consequences. LAMPAS lost Ralph, and the public's trust in them took a hit. Cassian, cocky as ever, claimed he had the confidence to save the hostages. The director shut him down, reminding him that if he's a psyker, he has to think and act like one. Punishment came quick, probation. Furious, Cassian stormed out, finally understanding why people called her the Steel Tower Witch, and wondering how his own brother could be best friends with her. That's when his phone rang. Jeff was on the line, asking him to come to Rhodes, Greece. Cassian made the trip, sitting alone in a coffee shop, waiting. His mind drifted back to the orphanage, where he and Jeff first bonded. They weren't blood brothers, but Jeff's skill let him create toys, dazzling the kids. Cassian was always by his side, and that's how they became inseparable. Back to the present, Jeff finally arrived, but he was in terrible shape, barely able to stand. He handed Cassian a necklace, coughing blood. Then, from the shadows, a masked swordsman appeared. Jeff shoved Cassian aside, trying to protect him, but the blade came down fast. Jeff was beheaded on the spot. Cassian's rage ignited. He chased the killer until nightfall, when the man finally stopped. The murderer revealed himself, Jack, an S-rank knight with physics skill. Cassian demanded answers. Jack coldly replied he'd eliminated a traitor. From the side, another figure stepped in, Lila, an S-rank mage with ice skill. Now Cassian was the one under suspicion. Cassian argued Jeff had been a psyker for 10 years and never killed anyone. But words weren't enough. He smiled, dashed forward, flame fist blazing. Jack drew his sword, countering, forcing Cassian back. Jack unleashed his sword spirit skill, floating blades circling him. Lila fired off cold blasts, but Cassian's flames burned through them. Then came the twist, another psyker hidden in the shadows. A sniper. The shot landed, stopping Cassian in his tracks. Refusing to fall, he roared, unleashing hellfire, a wave of explosions tearing open an escape route. He leapt off a cliff, but the sniper's bullet pierced his heart midair. Cassian plummeted into the sea. As his body sank, the necklace Jeff gave him began to glow. And then shift. Somewhere else, a kid dunks his head into a toilet. When he lifts it out, the glowing necklace is around his neck. Cassian's soul didn't vanish in the sea, it transferred. The body he woke up in belonged to a kid named Kwon Kong Woo. And just like that, our boy found himself in South Korea. Memories surged through his head, the name, the life, the fragments of someone else's existence. Then the necklace spoke. A voice echoed, and from it emerged Moros, an ancient noble spirit. Cassian learned Moros was the one who saved him after death, sacrificing nearly half his power to bring him back. Moros was curious, though. How was Cassian so fluent in Korean? Turns out, before being adopted, Cassian had lived in Korea. That explained it. Moros revealed Jeff had passed the necklace to Cassian to protect him, and that Jeff had been searching for something called the Exterminator Sword Mark, a weapon forged during the war in the Age of Myth. Cassian laughed it off, calling it a ridiculous legend. How could Moros even know something that old? But Moros stood firm, saying the sacrifice he made to revive Cassian was proof enough of his loyalty. Scrolling through his phone, Cassian nearly had a heart attack. LAMPAS had published published an article accusing him of corruption, black money, and worst of all, murder. They claimed he fought Jeff and killed him. His rage boiled over, aura twisting, eyes glowing, arms warping into something not even human. Meanwhile, 3 bullies were waiting. A fat student ran in, panicked, saying he couldn't find Kwon Kong Woo's body in the bathroom. That's when the truth came out. Before Cassian's soul transferred, those bastards had killed Kwon Kong Woo by suffocating him in the toilet. Now they realized he was alive again, and they planned to finish the job. But this time, it wasn't Kwon Kong Woo they were hunting. It was Cassian. Cassian panicked at the sight of his own twisted arms and bolted straight to the school's roof. Lucky for him, no one saw him in that state. Up there, breathing hard, he finally realized the truth. He wasn't a psyker anymore. He was a villain. Remember, those born with the blood of the Night Child are villains, and now Cassian had crossed that line. Moros didn't sugarcoat it. He explained Cassian was supposed to die, but being revived skewed the balance of destiny. His fate had shifted. He was destined to survive as a villain, and not just any villain, but one with catastrophic class power. Cassian couldn't believe it. A top-class psyker, now branded as the very thing he fought against. His anger surged, threatening to consume him, but Moros stepped in, forcing control. He warned Cassian that villains lose their capacity for reason, driven by insatiable desire. The evil inside him was coiling tighter, and Moros's grip was weakening the more Cassian raged. Cassian was lost, unsure what to do, until Moros reminded him, live. That's what Jeff would have wanted. Before his death, Jeff had told Moros he regretted dragging Cassian into this, and when the end came, Jeff gave up his own chance at life so Cassian could carry on. Cassian, still shaken, asked about Moros's true identity. Moros promised he'd learn the truth if he searched for the exterminator sword alongside him. Just then, footsteps echoed. The 3 bullies from before were closing in. Down in the hallway, another figure appeared, Kim Woo-chan, a striker with flame skill. And here's the funny part. Isn't this basically Cassian's old life mirrored back at him? A flame striker, just like he used to be. Woo-chan got a call from his son Bae, but hung up quickly when he noticed Cassian being cornered by the bullies. He muttered he'd call back later, eyes fixed on the scene. Cassian, from the memories he inherited, already knew these bullies had tormented Kwon Kong Woo endlessly. And now they were about to try again, except this time, they weren't facing the weak kid they'd drowned in a toilet. They were facing Cassian. Cassian didn't hold back. 2 of the bullies were down in seconds, and he was already sprinting toward the last one. The difference in strength was ridiculous, like watching a pro fighter toy with amateurs. The bullied had become the bully, and Cassian was dominating. Before things spiraled, Kim Woo stepped in. He told Cassian to stop, but the moment Cassian released the last guy, the punk tried a cheap shot from behind. Cassian spun and kicked him aside. Kim Woo grabbed Cassian's shoulder, and that triggered Cassian to lash out. But Kim Woo was ready. He blocked, dodged, countered, holding his ground against Cassian's fury. That's when Moros whispered the truth. Kim Woo was a psyker. Cassian let his guard down for a second, and Kim Woo dashed in with a punch. Cassian dodged, but the impact grazed his face, leaving a scratch. Kim Woo didn't press the fight. Instead, he suggested they stop. There was nothing to gain from tearing each other apart. He even handed Cassian an adhesive bandage for the cut. Cassian took it silently and walked away. Later, Cassian sat in an internet cafe, trying to log into his Lampa's account. His membership was gone, cancelled. That hit harder than the scratch. He turned to Moros, asking how he knew Kim Woo was a psyker. Moros explained he could tell from the impact, and with his eye of insight, he could gather even more detailed information. He added that Cassian's current body was a high spirit, one that observes and investigates the world's wisdom. Then Moros dropped the suggestion. Why not embrace being a villain? Cassian had no choice. Lampas had branded him a murderer, his psyker identity was gone, and the only power he had left was villain power. Moros warned him villains can't control their emotions, their desires drive them. In Cassian's case, anger would be the trigger. Cassian snapped, screaming like a maniac that he would kill Lampas. LOL, Moros calmly told him there was no need to scream. He could just imagine it. Now we shift to Kim Woo-chan. He's talking with his senior, B-rank psyker Lee Dae-woong. Their topic? The villain known as Blaster. A madman who lives for explosions, obsessed with watching the destruction he causes. So far, Blaster's claimed 102 lives. His ability? Generating bombs. Kim Woo's expression hardens. He says extermination is always the answer for villains. LOL, tell me that doesn't sound exactly like Cassian before he died. Back to Cassian, Moros activates the Eye of Insight. An information window pops up like a game stat screen. Cassian's attribute, darkness. His skills, a passive self-healing ability and an attack skill called shadow knives. Thanks to self-healing, the scratch on his face is already fading. Cassian wonders if a severed limb would regenerate too. Moros explains it's possible, but only within the limits of his spell capacity. Cassian notices a hidden skill. Moros clarifies those are abilities he'll unlock through growth. The funny part, Cassian now has only 300 mana points. Back when he was a psyker, he had over 1,500. Moros reminds him he's catastrophic class now, so raw potential outweighs numbers. Moros explains the Eye of Insight can be used on others too, but only 3 times a day. He warns Cassian. He once overused it with Jeff and ended up unconscious for half a day. Cassian tests shadow knives. A spike of shadow bursts from the ground, sharp as steel. He then crafts a shadow uniform for himself. LOL, Moros isn't impressed, calling the design plain and boring. Evening falls. Cassian heads home, or rather, Quan Kongwu's home. His parents are gone, but he lives with his older sister, who works hard to support them. From the memories, Cassian knows Quan loved her dearly. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the street. Blaster. Hostages are involved. Cassian doesn't hesitate, he dashes in. Moros warns him. Villain-on-villain fights are forbidden. Unless it's revenge or resentment, interfering is seen as destroying another villain's territory. If Cassian does this, he'll make enemies of all villains before even facing Lampas. But Cassian doesn't care. He says ignoring it, pretending not to know, wouldn't be human. He's determined to save the mother and child. Moros remembers Jeff's words. Jeff once said Cassian's temper made people call him a crazy idiot, but his compassion always outshined everyone else. That's why Jeff believed in him. Moros, reminded of that, makes his choice. He'll support Cassian no matter what. Blaster was right there, holding a mother and her child hostage, bombs strapped around her body. Meanwhile, Kim Woo and Lee Dae-woong were off on break when word reached them that Blaster was at it again, causing chaos. Back inside, Blaster leaned down to the kid, asking if he'd ever seen 5-colored fireworks in the night sky. The boy shook his head. Blaster's grin turned sick, promising the kid he'd see them tonight, mixed with his mother's blood and flesh. The lights cut out. Blaster had already set traps, waiting for anyone foolish enough to enter through the front. But Cassian wasn't foolish. He smashed through the window instead, landing a perfect punch straight into Blaster's face. The mother and child were safe for the moment, but Blaster managed to slip a bomb onto Cassian's body in the chaos. Cassian immediately pulled back, creating distance so the hostages wouldn't be caught in the blast. Blaster tried to form another bomb, but Cassian's shadow knives shot out, slicing his arm clean off. Cassian lunged, pinning him to the ground. Blaster struggled, reaching with his remaining arm to conjure another explosive, but Cassian stopped him cold and delivered a devastating punch that shook the floor. Cassian didn't stop. Punch after punch, his rage poured out until he wasn't just fighting Blaster anymore. He was becoming something darker, and for a moment he looked less like a savior and more like a maniac villain. Even the mother and her child, the ones he'd just saved, recoiled in fear at the sight of him. If Moros hadn't called out, grounding him, Cassian would have lost himself completely. By the time the police arrived with Lee and Kim Woo, Blaster was down and the hostages were safe. Word spread fast. A villain had rescued them, and that same villain had beaten Blaster into the ground. Kim Woo went straight to secure the CCTV footage from the staff room, while Cassian slipped outside, sitting alone. He couldn't shake the image of the terrified mother and child begging for his help, only to fear him afterward. Moros confirmed what Cassian already suspected. If he'd kept going, he would have turned into a lunatic like Blaster. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Kong Woo's sister. Dinner's ready, come eat. Back with Lee and the others, they reviewed the CCTV footage. It showed Cassian saving the hostages, undeniable proof of what happened. Meanwhile, Cassian returned home. On the table was a note from Kong Woo's sister. Heat the rice and stew in the microwave, fruits are in the fridge. Cassian stared at the food, memories flooding back. In the orphanage, if he was late for dinner, the maiden would let him starve. But Jeff always saved bread for him, slipping it into his hands later so he wouldn't go hungry. Now, after everything, it had been so long since Cassian had eaten food prepared for him by someone else. The next morning Cassian woke up, still struggling to believe he was living someone else's life. He brushed his teeth, trying to shake off the thought, when Kong Yuri, his sister, asked if he was heading to school. She reminded him he should at least let her know before leaving. Cassian found it awkward running into her, even wondering if he should tell her the truth, that he wasn't her real brother. She handed him a debit card. Kong Woo had once asked her for next month's pocket money in advance, claiming he'd lost his wallet. In reality, the bullies had pressured him into it. She believed him and gave him the card, and now Cassian was holding it. He thanked her, calling her Nuna. LOL, though the word felt strange on his tongue since it had been so long since he'd spoken Korean. Before he left, she stopped him, saying something felt different about him. Then she noticed his hairstyle had changed and lit up, joking maybe he got a girlfriend. At school, Se-chan, the bully, showed up with a scratch on his face. Everyone stared, shocked that even he had been beaten. Humiliated, Se-chan screamed at the students to stop looking. Just then Cassian walked in, asking where his seat was. Terrified, Se-chan pointed it out. Students whispered about yesterday's events, a villain beating another villain. Cassian's name was already spreading, but alongside that chatter came darker rumors. Not long ago, a high school girl had been murdered, her arms and legs cut off, her blood drained. People said it was the work of a villain called Screwdriver. He wasn't just a killer, he was the boss of the Vilzone in Gadam district, infamous for using bodies in human experiments. Cassian's ears perked up. This was something he needed to know more about. Meanwhile, the other two bullies weren't done. They approached Kwok Daegu, offering him money to take Cassian down. The moment Daegu saw the cash, he agreed without hesitation. Class ended, and Wuchan walked over to Cassian, asking if his injuries had healed. Of course they had, thanks to his self-healing. But Cassian kept the bandage on to avoid raising suspicion. Wuchan leaned in, trying to warn him about the bullies' plan, but Cassian already knew they were tailing him. He brushed Wuchan off, telling him to mind his own business. Wuchan pressed again, asking his name. Cassian replied, Kong Wuquan. Outside, Moros commented that Wuchan was eerily similar to Cassian back when he was the top-class psyker Cassian Lee. As Cassian walked forward, Se-chan and his friend followed close behind, contacting the others to set up an ambush. Their plan was simple: surround him and beat him down. Cassian, unfazed, led them into an empty alley. Soon enough, the rest of the bullies joined Se-chan, ready to corner him. But Cassian vanished. The idiots chased after him, not realizing the alley led straight into a Vilzone. They stumbled right into the middle of it. Kwok Daegu, the thug they'd hired, was already there. Annoyed they were wasting his time, he smacked one of them. And then Cassian appeared. Watching from above, a camera fixed on the scene. The lens belonged to none other than Screwdriver, the Vilzone boss himself. Kwok Daegu stood there, 5 people in front of him, but he wasn't fazed at all. He put on that thug face, counting down to 3, expecting Cassian to bow his head. The countdown ended. Cassian didn't even blink. Daegu snapped, closing the distance, spitting insults. Cassian's response was brutal. 2 fingers jabbed straight into Daegu's eyes. Then he grabbed his head and smashed it against the wall. The big guy in Daegu's crew charged in, fists swinging, but Cassian slipped past his attacks with ease. He maneuvered behind him, kicked him hard enough to knock him off balance, and when the thug hit the ground, Cassian stomped his face into the pavement. The rest of the bullies froze, watching in shock at how easily Cassian was dismantling them. Daegu staggered back up, angrier than ever. He shifted his stance, Muay Thai. Turns out, he wasn't just a street thug. He was a national-level Muay Thai player back in high school. Ki-hun, one of the bullies, lit up with excitement, thinking this was their chance to finally turn the fight around. But Cassian had seen this before. His mind flashed back to his Psyker days, when he fought Johann Klaus. Everyone laughed at him then, saying he couldn't match Johan's raw strength. Jack showed up during that fight, and instead of laughing, he warned them Johann might be the one to get hurt. Jack revealed the truth. Cassian Lee was a graduate of the Psyker Combat Training Agency, the youngest ever to finish at the top of his class. Back in the present, Cassian proved it again. With a single devastating blow, he dropped Daegu flat. And he wasn't done. Cassian was determined to teach them all a lesson, because these guys weren't going to learn the easy way. His anger flared hotter when he thought about Lampas. Then the air shifted. Above them, a figure appeared, the villain Screwdriver, watching from the sky. The bullies bolted. The second Screwdriver showed up, running like the cowards they are. Now it's just Cassian face to face with the Vilzone boss himself. Screwdriver points his weapon at Cassian and fires, only for a flower to pop out. Weird flex, but Cassian doesn't even care. He turns his back, heading home like this guy isn't worth his time. But then Cassian stops. He transforms into his villain form, ready to fight. Moros warns him, driver stronger, this isn't a smart move. But Cassian doesn't care. To him, the best way to learn is to put your life on the line and fight for real. Driver watches closely, trying to mimic Cassian's movements from earlier. He knows these aren't ordinary strikes. Cassian suddenly appears from behind, launching an attack. Driver raises his arms, blocking, but Cassian keeps the momentum flowing. Shadow knives slash forward. Driver leaps into the air, dodging, then summons his weapon. And here it comes, his skill, Driver Beam. A massive blast of energy shoots down, aimed straight at Cassian. The Driver Beam slams down, a massive blast shaking the ground, but Cassian doesn't fold. He raises his shadow knives, forming a shield, and blocks the attack head-on. Everyone thought he'd be vaporized, but nope, our boy tanked it. Moros had already used the Eye of Insight earlier, failure, and here's what we learned. Drivers got 1,000 mana. That's 3 times Cassian's output. On paper, Cassian shouldn't stand a chance. But in practice, he's moving like a monster. Driver drops down, pressing the attack, but Cassian dodges every strike with precision. Even Driver starts realizing, there's no way this kid is predicting his movements by luck. Cassian halts for a split second, and Driver fires off his goggle beam. Cassian ducks low, slides under it, and smashes Driver's leg, knocking him off balance. He dashes in to keep the momentum, but Driver recovers fast, countering with machine hand. Cassian answers with dark knives, cutting through the assault. Despite the mana gap, Cassian is dominating. His movements, his timing, it's like he's rewriting the fight. Then things escalate. More villains show up. Crow Woman, Red Eye, and Blackhand. Crow mocks Driver, teasing him for losing a one-on-one against an amateur. Blackhand's shocked, staring at Cassian like he can't believe what he's seeing. Cassian declares he's here to kill the murderer who's been slaughtering people. Snaping back, Driver says he's being falsely accused, but the dude has no evidence to prove it. And then it happens. Cassian's control slips. His defense drops, and in that moment Blackhand lunges from behind, striking while Cassian's guard is down. Blackhand lunges in, activating his Death Gauntlet skill. Cassian snaps out of his dizziness just in time, sidesteps, and mocks him for cheap tricks. Blackhand swings again, but Cassian dodges clean and fires back with a brutal punch that drops him flat. The other villains freeze. None of them expected Blackhand to get knocked down like that, but Cassian's head is spinning, his body feels heavy. Driver explains why. Cassian's spell power is only 300, yet it surged too fast in a short span. That imbalance is messing with him. Red Eye can't believe it. How could someone with D-rank spell power knock down Blackhand, a B-rank villain? Spell power alone doesn't decide fights. Cassian is different. In mechanical terms, he's like a perfectly optimized high-end machine. Driver then pulls out a magical crystal from his weapon. Villains can boost their spell power through brutal training or by ingesting crystals. He tosses it to Cassian, telling him to eat it. Cassian's confused. Why give it for free? Driver makes it clear. It's a deal. He wants Cassian to catch the real indiscriminate murderer. Lore drop time. There are 2 types of crystals. Gene crystals, naturally occurring, and magic crystals, man-made. The difference? Night and day. Moros advises Cassian to consume it in his villain form. Cassian leaps onto the roof of a tall building, takes the crystal, and swallows it. At first, nothing. Then, a surge of energy erupts around him, his aura flaring. Just like that, Cassian's spell power spikes higher. Cassian checks his spell power after consuming the crystal, and it only went up by 50 points. At first, he's disappointed, but Moros is stunned, because most villains only gain 5 to 10 points from a magic crystal. Cassian's increase is the highest ever recorded, a 500% boost. That's insane. And it doesn't stop there. A new hidden skill unlocks, magic crystal extraction. Moros explains Cassian can now pull spell power out of weapons, even those forged from gene crystals. LOL, Cassian thinks it's useless, but in reality, this means he could create an infinite supply of crystals as long as he has weapons to work with. Meanwhile, we shift to Lee and Kim Woo inside a desert store. Lee's excited about a new sword crafted from 2 magic crystals. Kim Woo asks if he found anything about the mysterious villain who fought Blaster. Lee says he scoured the data but came up empty. Instead, he shifts the focus to the serial killer case. Kim Woo suspects Screwdriver, but Lee disagrees. He argues Screwdriver's obsessed with gadgets and high-end gear, not cold-blooded murder. Lee points out the probability of it being a villain is high, but raises a chilling thought. What if it's not a villain at all? What if it's just an ordinary person hiding behind the mask of madness? Then the spotlight shifts again. We learn Kim Woo has a younger sister, a freshman model. Cut to Ace Studio, where she's with her friend Min Young On, taking photos for a shoot. Once the job's done, Naeun, Kim Woo's sister, heads out to meet her brother. But Min Young suddenly insists they stop to play the toy crane machine. Naeun protests. She's got a curfew, her brother's waiting, but Min Young begs for just one more round. And of course, things couldn't get worse. Right behind them, lurking in the shadows, the serial killer. Back home, Cassian scrolls through the news. An article announces that a special force has been set up to calm the fears of Gadam district residents. Their mission clear: catch the indiscriminate killer. Clenching his fist, he can't just sit back and watch people die. He needs a way to track this murderer. During his encounter with Driver, Cassian had received a phone, only capable of sending and receiving texts or files. No GPS, no calls. For a moment, Cassian considers using it to ask for help. But his pride kicks kicks in. He refuses to ask a villain for assistance, even though he himself is now a villain. Meanwhile, Naun and Minyoung are still at the crane machine. Time flies, and Naun remembers her curfew. Her brother's waiting. That's when Minyoung finally breaks down and confesses. A few days ago, she saw one of their schoolmates murdered. Worse, the villain who did it saw her. She's been too terrified to tell anyone, but now that Naun knows, they're both in danger. They decide to head to the police station. But before they can move, the store's door seals shut. Blood spreads across the floor. And then, the murderer reveals himself. A B-rank villain known as Bloodrain. Cassian, by sheer chance, is close to the building. His phone buzzes. A message from driver. 2 girls are being attacked by Bloodrain. Naun clutches the panic button her brother gave her. One click, and Kim will know exactly where she is. She presses it. Now all she has to do is stall until he arrives. The villain starts rambling, talking about eternal sleep, craving fresh blood, tearing apart hollowed bodies. Naun plays it smart, asking questions, stalling for time, keeping him talking. But Bloodrain isn't waiting around. He conjures a blood orb and hurls it straight at Minyoung. It lands clean. She collapses instantly. Now it's Naun's turn. Bloodrain raises another orb, ready to finish her. But before it can launch, Cassian storms in. Shadow knives slash through the air. Bloodrain dodges, quick on his feet, but Cassian is already in front of him. The villain regains momentum fast, shoving Cassian back. And just like that, it's villain versus villain once again. Bloodrain wasn't stupid. Just one look at Cassian and he knew. This wasn't some ordinary punk. He quickly pieced it together. Cassian was the one who took down Blaster. Not willing to risk it, Bloodrain made his escape using his blood technique, promising they'd meet again. Naun, clutching her injured friend Minyoung, begged Cassian for help. Meanwhile, Lee and Kim Woo were already tracking the panic button signal, closing in fast. Cassian asked for something to tie around the wound, something with elasticity. Naun handed him stockings. Cassian looked dumbfounded, not even realizing what he was holding. But hey, they worked. He wrapped them around Minyoung's wound while Moros checked her condition. Thankfully, nothing immediately fatal. Soon, the police and medics arrived. That was Cassian's cue to leave. Naun was stunned, but Cassian explained he had to. What would people think if they saw him in his villain form? He slipped away, creating distance from the scene. But then he noticed something. A drone was following him. And it wasn't random. That drone had been there even before Bloodrain appeared. Just then, Crow Woman showed up. Driver was watching through the drone. Crow explained that Screwdriver had deployed these drones in areas likely to be struck by the murderer. Thanks to that, they identified the culprit, Bloodrain, a villain who roams the country committing heinous murders. As a token of their deal, Crow handed Cassian a delivery from Driver, 3 magical crystals. The next morning, the news is buzzing about yesterday's incident. Kong Yuri watches TV, relieved that the girl survived Bloodrain's assault. Before Cassian heads out, his sister warns him to be safe. Little does she know she's talking to the guy who fought Bloodrain himself. Walking outside, Moros notices Cassian isn't heading to school. Cassian reflects on his encounter with Crow Woman. She told him straight up, with his current spell power, he can't defeat Bloodrain. That's why Driver sent more magical crystals. They even handed him a micro GPS tracker and a list of Bloodrain's sightings. But Crow made it clear, if Cassian disappoints Driver, there'll be bloodshed between them. Jumping back to the present, Cassian heads towards COA High School. Why? Because Naun and her friend, the girls attacked yesterday, attend there. He figures he might find more clues. He also learns Naun is Kim Woo's sister. To cover his tracks, Cassian pretends to have a cold and tells his school he won't be coming today. Meanwhile, Kim Woo stayed up all night at the hospital, waiting for his sister and her friend's treatment. Lee explains why Bloodrain wasn't suspected before. His record shows he drains blood, but leaves bodies intact. The victims in Gadam district, though, were mutilated, so Bloodrain was excluded. Kim Woo, however, is troubled. His sister called the villain her savior. Why would a villain save people? Neither he nor Lee can understand it. Back to Cassian, he reaches his destination. He spots 2 girls entering a store. Inside, they're surprised by the good-looking boy working there, even asking if he's a model. Cassian's like, what kind of NPC dialogue is this? But then he notices something off about the dude. To test him, Cassian casually grabs a Coke, saying he wants to buy it. Our boy spots a novel on the side, The Bride of Corinth. Classic vampire literature. Just then, an old man asks for help, and the model-looking clerk steps in. Their eyes meet. Moros instantly knows this dude is a villain. Outside, before Moros can even say it, Cassian already figured it out. And that novel? It's no coincidence. Bloodrain's final words, "You shall die in me," are straight out of that book. Cassian's on the right trail. Once Bloodrain finishes his shift, Cassian tails him. The villain heads towards Siowa Girls High School. But mid-tail, the old man from before nearly gets hit by a car. Cassian saves him, but loses Bloodrain in the process. Cassian leaps to the rooftops, shifting into his his villain form. He consumes the 3 magical crystals Driver sent. His spell points spike to 470, unlocking 2 new skills, Hidden Shadow and Shadow Movement. But Cassian's disappointed. The boost feels small. Turns out villain bodies build tolerance. The more crystals you eat, the less they boost you. Moros activates the Eye of Insight, revealing Bloodrain's stats. Blood Step lets him dissolve into blood and escape danger. Hypnosis turns people into his servants. Meanwhile, Bloodrain enters the hospital where Naun and Minyoung are recovering. He uses hypnosis on a doctor and 2 assistants, ordering them to bring Minyoung straight to him. Naun is sitting right next to Minyoung, scrolling through her phone, trying to find the villain who saved her. But he's nowhere on the villain registry. Just then, the doctor and 2 assistants, already under Bloodrain's hypnosis, approach, saying Minyoung needs more tests. Suspicious, but Naun doesn't realize yet. Meanwhile, Cassian is outside testing his new skills. Hidden Shadow lets him vanish, slipping between obstacles, while Shadow Movement turns him into pure speed. He even discovers he can chain them together, vanishing and reappearing like a phantom. And remember when Bloodrain made contact earlier? Cassian secretly planted a GPS tracker on him. Smart move. Back inside, the doctor and assistants load Minyoung into an ambulance. Naun's alarm bells go off. Why an ambulance for a simple test? Then the truth hits. Bloodrain himself appears. Naun tries to warn the staff, but they're under hypnosis. Bloodrain grabs her. She slams the emergency button her brother gave her, signaling Kim Woo. And then Cassian arrives. He tells Naun to get down on his count. 1, 2, 3. He crashes in, slamming Bloodrain back. Cassian keeps pressing forward, fists flying, delivering a devastating punch. Bloodrain tanks it, counters with Blood Cutter. Cassian ducks low, avoids the slash, and fires another crushing blow that pins Bloodrain into the ground. But Bloodrain rises again, eyes glowing. He unleashes hypnosis. The air thickens, his aura presses down, but Cassian doesn't budge. Somehow, the skill has no effect on him. Cassian doesn't hold back this time. He beats the crap out of Bloodrain, giving him no chance to counter. Every punch lands heavy. Every strike pushes the villain closer to defeat. But Bloodrain just laughs, pointing out Cassian won't be able to finish him. Then he activates Blood Step, dissolving into liquid blood and slipping away. Once Bloodrain escapes, the doctor and assistants snap out of hypnosis, confused but free. Cassian tells them to move somewhere safe, then heads for the exit. But just as he's about to leave, Kim Woo and Lee arrive, blocking his path. Lee wastes no time, hurling his sword with flying sword. Cassian punches it back. Kim Woo hesitates, remembering how this villain saved people, saved his sister. Memories flood in, but once he snaps out of it, he unleashes his flame skill, Flare. Cassian blocks with shadow knives. From behind, Lee fires off Great Bear Lightning. Cassian dodges, but still gets scratched. Then Kim Woo dashes in from the side, only for Naun to step between them, shouting that this villain saved her again. That moment of distraction is all Cassian needs. He melts into shadow, vanishes, and escapes. Meanwhile, Bloodrain reforms into his human body. He's battered, bruised, and desperate. His body screams for blood. He needs it to regain his strength. Bloodrain spots a club, Red Juice, and decides it's the perfect place to refill his supply. Inside, couples are dancing, people laughing, music blasting. Then suddenly, Bloodrain approaches a girl and sinks his fangs, draining her blood right there on the dance floor. Moments later, Lee and Kim will get word of an incident at Club Red Juice in Gadam District. They rush over. By the time they arrive, it's a massacre. Bloodrain slaughtered multiple people, sucking their blood, and now he's sitting casually, drinking it like wine. This dude's acting like he's at a 5-star restaurant instead of a crime scene. Lee quickly instructs Kim Woo, rescue the survivors first. But Bloodrain has other plans. He lunges forward, conjuring a blood spear and hurling it at them. Lee reacts instantly, slicing it apart. Kim Woo tries to counter with his fire abilities, but Lee shouts at him to stop, too dangerous with survivors nearby. Bloodrain seizes the opening. Both of them let their guard down, and he capitalizes. He smashes Lee into the wall, then follows up with Blood Smash, slamming Lee's head into the wall again, keeping the momentum brutal and relentless. Bloodrain lights up. He's got the upper hand. Kim Woo dashes in to save his mentor, unleashing a fire blast, but Bloodrain dodges clean and slashes him with his claws, leaving a scratch. Even injured, Kim Woo counters with a kick that pushes the villain back. Frustrated, Kim Woo realizes he can't use his flame skill freely here with survivors around. Bloodrain notices and twists the knife, mocking him by bringing up his sister, saying she mistook the villain who saved her for her brother. That hits Kim Woo hard. Bloodrain drags him to an empty place, wanting to test the blood of an angry Psyker. Kim Woo unleashes his flame skill, thinking he's got this. But Bloodrain dodges, grabs him by the neck, and slams him into the ground. Surprise, Bloodrain wasn't even using full power before. Now he's serious. Meanwhile, Cassian finally reaches the club. The scene is pure carnage. carnage. Blood rain turned it into a massacre. Moros checks Lee. He's alive, but barely. Next to him lies his magical sword. Cassian picks it up and instantly senses it's no ordinary weapon. Moros instructs him to extract the magic crystal. Cassian hesitates. It's not his weapon. But then he remembers how Lee injured him earlier. Our boy basically went finders keepers and did it anyway. From the sword, Cassian extracts 2 magical crystals and ingests them on the spot. This time, something's different. His power surges massively. Cassian feels it. This strength reminds him of his prime days as a psyker. Back in the fight, 3 villains are hiding up top, waiting for Cassian to show. Kim Woo charges in, fist blazing with flame, but Bloodrain blocks it head-on like fire doesn't even matter. Turns out Kim Woo's flames are too weak to affect him. Bloodrain counters with a brutal blood strike, forcing Kim Woo down to his knees. As Bloodrain keeps spouting nonsense, Cassian finally arrives. And oh boy, the shadow aura around him is insane. He's aura farming hard, stepping in like, "What's up, mosquito fucker?" Bloodrain's been beat up every arc, but he still loves to talk trash. Bloodrain boasts he's not the same as before. After absorbing dozens of humans in the club, he claims his power is invincible. He hurls multiple blood spears, but Cassian blocks them with shadow knives. Bloodrain dashes in, grabbing Cassian, swinging claws, only for Cassian to vanish into shadow and reappear behind him. Cassian dodges clean, then delivers a crushing punch followed by a devastating kick. His strength has skyrocketed. Even Kim Woo realizes this isn't the same villain from the hospital. Bloodrain panics. He tries to transform into blood to escape like usual. But this time, Cassian activates his new skill, Shadow's Capture. Bloodrain is instantly immobilized, locked in place. And then comes the twist. Cassian unlocks a new attribute, Dark Flame. Fate's playing games. Back when he was a psyker, he wielded flame, and now as a villain, he wields flame again, but twisted into darkness. Cassian launches flames of darkness straight at the immobilized Bloodrain. The villain is engulfed, trapped, and burning under the dual properties of shadow and flame. And here's the stat window update for our boy. Attributes: darkness, dual properties, flames of darkness. Skills: shadow knives, hidden shadow, shadow movement, shadow's capture. Spell power: 470+, boosted by crystal extraction. The next day, the news is buzzing about Bloodrain's defeat. But here's the twist. They're crediting Kim Woo as the one who captured him. Inside the hospital, Lee is celebrating, proud that his student apprehended the villain. But Kim Woo knows the truth. He didn't do anything. It was the shadowy villain, Cassian, who beat Bloodrain down. Kim Woo admits to Lee that he told the police the truth, but the reports still pinned the victory on him. Lee tries to comfort him, saying Cassian probably had his own reasons for helping. Meanwhile, the bullies are back. Lucky for them, they avoided the club massacre yesterday, or they'd be dead. Ki-hun approaches Daegu, asking why he's alone without Dong-sung. Turns out, after Cassian stomped Sung's face, he's been hospitalized with an orbital fracture. Ki-hun still wants to rally the boys for another attack on Cassian. This dude really doesn't know when to quit. But Daegu refuses, trembling, saying he's more scared of Cassian than Kim Woo. He points out, those eyes Cassian has, they don't belong to a human. Back with Cassian, he's thinking of visiting Driver and his companions. He's got questions. Shifting to the Vile Zone, Screwdriver gets approached by 3 villains, the ones who were watching Cassian fight Bloodrain yesterday. The leader? A tall, handsome A-rank villain named Royal Garnet. His companions? 2 deceptively cute A-rank villains, Aroma and Hote. Garnet explains that watching Cassian fight was like witnessing a brilliant black diamond. He adds that Driver must have sent him there knowing Cassian had dual properties. When Driver heard Cassian had dual properties, even he was stunned. Garnet made it clear he's never heard of a villain with dual properties. But Driver corrected him. There was one before long ago, during the mythical age. Shifting to Cassian, he arrives at the Vil Zone. Quick lore drop. Vil Zone doesn't exist to imprison villains. It exists to prevent fights between villains and psykers, giving villains a place to roam freely. Ultimately, it's meant to keep harmony between both sides. Driver approaches Cassian and takes him to the Heaven Pub. He buys him a grapefruit ade and hands over the promised reward, more magical crystals. Driver notices Cassian's magic has risen sharply and wonders if he got crystals elsewhere. Of course, Cassian won't reveal his hidden skill that lets him extract crystals from magical weapons. Cassian presses for answers. How does Driver get his hands on these crystals? That's when the supplier himself shows up. Yu Chaiha, the bartender, an A-rank outer. Chaiha uses his ability to create a pawn that looks exactly like Cassian, then serves him a sandwich, calling it a complimentary dish for a special customer. Lore drop. Outers are psykers who aren't registered with the National Psyker Organization Lampas. They act on their own free will, outside the system. Cassian asks if he can purchase crystals here too. Chaiha agrees, but only if Cassian becomes part of the Vilzone family. That means residing in the residential district and taking a test. Depending on the result, Cassian could even become the boss of Vilzone. At first, Cassian isn't interested, but Driver explains, becoming boss means complete authority, subordinates, and an exclusive luxury training room. Cassian still isn't impressed, until Driver mentions the black market. Cassian could obtain all the crystals he wants there, plus a monthly salary. Once he hears the amount, our boy is fully convinced. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Vilzone, Blackhand is hanging out with his friend Crush. They're approached by Double Blade, who informs them Cassian is here, the same villain who humiliated Blackhand last time. Blackhand is furious, craving revenge. Double Blade reminds him Driver restricted battles inside Vilzone, but Blackhand doesn't care. He wants to break that rule starting today. Driver takes Cassian around Vilzone, showing how they manage things. You've got villains like Dirt Dog, who just loves digging dirt, and Cleaner, a lunatic obsessed with spotless floors. They're nuts, but harmless to humans. Still, even harmless quirks can cause damage. That's why Vilzone exists, to keep balance and prevent chaos between psykers and villains. Then Driver drops the big reveal. The reason Cassian was assigned to apprehend Bloodrain. There's a traitor inside the Vilzone family. To weed them out, they needed someone with no ties to Vilzone or Driver. Just like psykers, villains split into factions, those who follow rules, and those who disregard them. Bloodrain wasn't the traitor, just a distraction, an element of surprise. The real goal? The destruction of Vilzone itself. Cassian doesn't want to get involved, but Driver swears on his life as a villain that this is a sincere request. Meanwhile, Cassian's sister Kong Yuri is working at a noble house. The owner praises her hard work to a blonde associate, then informs her the head office in America has sent an invitation. They want her for additional training, covering flights, and even providing an apartment. She's thrilled, until she remembers her brother will be alone without her. Back to Cassian, still confused about Driver's oath. Trouble brews. Blackhand and his crew show up, ready for revenge. But before they can move, a barrel comes flying, stopping Blackhand. It's hurled by Jueke, a strong woman villain. She reminds them of the rules. No fighting inside Vilzone. Of course, those rules only apply once Cassian officially joins the family. Then Crow Woman arrives. With a sinister tone, she makes it clear, soon enough, Cassian will join them. For now, they'll let him go. That night, Yuri comes home. She checks if her brother is asleep, but can't open his door. Thinking back to the invitation she received, she just heads to bed. The next morning, Cassian is out training, running with 10 kilograms weight strapped to both arms and legs. What's the National Geographic logo doing here? Our boy's basically turning his grind into a documentary. He's determined to raise his stamina and strength because in 1 week, he'll face the Vilzone test. Flashback to yesterday. Cassian learned the test will be in 10 days, structured as 1v1 battles. Killing is prohibited unless unavoidable. His first opponent? Yuak. Cassian decides to strengthen himself, not because he cares about joining the family, but because it gives him a path to revenge against Lampas. During training, Cassian notices 2 girls watching him. After he leaves, their true forms are revealed. They're Aroma and Hote, the A-rank twins. Back home, Cassian takes a shower and sees the mess his sister left. While cleaning, he spots the invitation from America. Yuri wakes up and snatches it back. She first decides not to go. She doesn't want to leave her brother alone. She even lays it out, saying, does he even know how to cook, dispose of food waste, or do laundry? Cassian just smiles and tells her to go. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Later on, our boy hops online trying to figure out the most basic thing, how to cook rice. Why? Because his sister's heading to America soon, and he wants to prove he can handle himself. Around her, he's not Cassian, he's Quan Kongwu, so keeping up appearances matters. And of course, Moros couldn't resist trolling him, telling her to go when he doesn't even know how to cook rice. But let's be real, the guy lived in America too, so his specialty is Western food. Rice just wasn't on the menu back then. That same night, Yuri went out drinking with her friends. She was zoning out, clearly weighed down by the thought of leaving her brother behind. And honestly, when you're about to make a big move like that, sometimes the only way to forget is to drink. Later, Cassian showed up to take her home. On the way back, she mentioned how mature he was for worrying about her, and that hit him, because Jeff had told him the exact same thing once before. The next morning, Cassian stepped up. He cooked Yuri breakfast, rice included, just to show her he could manage without her. It was his way of easing her worries before she left. After his morning training, the two of them headed to the airport. Their goodbye was heartfelt. He even promised her that if she ever ran into trouble in America, he'd fly straight over without hesitation. Fast forward to the evening, and now it's time. The test to join the Vilzone family begins. His first opponent, Fuak. And let me hype this up for you. Jwak isn't just strong, she's built for close quarters combat. Her body is trained for battle, meaning speed tricks and fancy footwork won't cut it against her. She's the type of fighter you don't underestimate. All that hype, gone the second the fight started. Cassian didn't waste time. He immobilized her instantly, slipped into the shadows, and delivered a clean, fatal strike that knocked her out cold. Just like that, fight over. Next, you probably thought Black Hand was next, but nah. The one stepping in was Red Eye, Vilzone's greatest hunter. Before we dive into the fight, let's shift gears for a second. Somewhere else, this villain is scheming, plotting with someone about how they're going to make Vilzone collapse from the inside. Keep that in mind, it's important. Back to the arena. Our boy suddenly finds himself dodging homing arrows. Red Eye's specialty. He tricks the arrows, but that leaves him wide open midair. And guess who's already behind him? Red Eye locked in, unleashing his skill, rapid fire. The impact was brutal, shaking the place. But Cassian isn't the type to get caught like that. He slips into shadow, reappears behind Red Eye, ready to land the finishing blow. Except, Red Eye surrenders. Just like that. He's no fool. Once a ranged dealer gets caught, it's game over. And honestly, he wasn't even supposed to be part of this test. Driver asked him to step in, so he did. Then Red Eye hands Cassian something crucial, a DSP, Desire Suppression Patch. Basically, it keeps him from losing control and slipping too far into his villain's side. Because let's be real, nobody wants casualties here. Now it's Black Hand's turn. He's already arguing with his friends, who are mocking him nonstop. They know he doesn't stand a chance against Cassian. And honestly, that fact's been proven before. Meanwhile, Jwak, the one knocked out earlier, finally wakes up. And instead of being salty, she laughs. She spills what she overheard back at the pub. Driver's planning to hand over his boss position to Cassian. That's huge. But of course, neither Black Hand and his crew nor Jwak want that to happen. So Jwak makes a deal with another villains, plotting to stop Cassian and teach him a lesson. But let's be real, we already know who's about to get schooled here. Cassian's chilling for a moment, enjoying his sandwich, when Black Hand storms in furious. Because he just found out our boy is about to be the boss around here. From behind, Crush comes crashing in, but Cassian's too agile. He dodges with ease. Then Double Blade tries to sneak up, but Cassian reacts instantly, counters, and now it's 3 versus 1. Or wait, make that 4 versus 1 because Jwak jumps in too. Meanwhile, Driver's watching the whole thing like it's a casual show, sitting back peacefully. Crow Woman's trying to get his attention, and soon Red Eye joins them. But Driver starts to realize something's off. Back in the fight, Cassian's got 4 villains coming at him at once. Crush charges again, but Cassian subdues him, strips him of his weapon, and moves on. Black Hand tries to rush in, only to eat a strong counter followed by a heavy punch. Crush gets back up, but Cassian kicks him down again. Jwak lunges in, same result, knocked flat like the rest. What can I say? Our boy's not just holding his ground, he's making these villains look like practice dummies. This villain right here is really something. Huh, now hold up. Things aren't over yet. Jwak's friends show up too, Hammer Boy and Pointer. Just one look from Cassian and Pointer's already trembling. Then out of nowhere, Iron Mask dives in like a rocket launcher aimed straight at our boy. And what does Cassian do? He simply shifts his body to the side, and Iron Mask smashes into the ground. Smooth. Hammer Boy fires off his skill, Hammer Shot. Cassian dodges, sprinting toward him, but Pointer blocks the path, turning his spear into a flame spear. Cassian doesn't hesitate. He counters with his darkness flame. Jwak tries to add to the chaos, launching Crush at Cassian and hurling her barrel right after. Cassian slices the barrel apart with his dark knives, then cuts down Crush's weapon with another strike. Black Hand, watching from the sidelines, can't even process where Cassian's pulling all this strength from. These so-called villains finally realize they're not hunting Cassian. They're the ones being hunted inside his shadowy domain. But in that moment, Cassian misses one thing. Another villain has been hiding all along. Suddenly, he's trapped in a dark web. This is Binder. No matter how hard Cassian struggles, he can't break free. The web doesn't just bind his body. It crawls into his desires, his attachments, locking him down completely. With Cassian immobilized, the villains swarm him. He's holding them off, but there are too many. He takes hits, and honestly, what can I say? These cowards are shameless, ganging up like that. And then it happens. Cassian sees the real owner of his body, Quan Kongwu. Quan mocks him, calling out his weakness even after taking control. That memory of Lampa's killing Jeff and framing him surges back, fueling Cassian's rage. He loses control. And now, the real villain has arrived. Now that Cassian lost control, it was game over for the villains. Shadow knives burst from the ground all around him, forcing everyone back. Driver checked his stats and froze. Cassian's spell power had shot past 2,000. That's the threshold. Anyone with mana points over 2,000 is classified as a catastrophe catastrophe-grade villain. In other words, someone capable of wiping everything out. Moros immediately stepped in, calling out to Cassian, trying to snap him back. But here's the truth. It wasn't Moros who saved him. The only reason Cassian regained his senses was because of the desire suppression patch Red Eye had given him earlier. That patch kept him from spiraling too far into his villain side. Once he calmed down, Driver noticed Cassian's spell power had dropped to less than half. With the villains defeated, Dwack still wanted to fight. But Black Hand stepped in, stopping her cold. He confronted her directly, admitting the truth. They were no match for Cassian. Even when they all joined forces, they still lost. Soon Driver and the others entered the scene. Driver didn't just acknowledge Cassian's strength. He declared that Cassian had officially passed the test. He even congratulated him. But Cassian, drained from everything, couldn't hold on any longer. Exhausted, he collapsed right into the arms of his new family. At Philadelphia International Airport, Yuri finally arrived safely in America. But even then, she couldn't shake her concern. Her brother wasn't answering her messages. Sean was already there waiting, driving her toward her workplace. On the way, she asked about the hotel manager. Sean described him as a charming guy, someone who genuinely loves his work. He's away on a business trip, and she won't meet him for another 10 days. Meanwhile, Cassian's taking a nap, but his dreams drag him into memories of the HC orphanage. Jeff was surprised back then. Little Cassian wanted to be a psyker. Funny thing is, when he was younger, he always said he wanted to be a cool villain. So Jeff asked him why the change. Cassian explained he wanted to be like Jeff, always fighting for justice. Jeff gave him a lesson that stuck. Not all psykers are on the side of justice. And villains? Same deal. Justice isn't about titles, it's about righteousness. That moment left a deep mark on Cassian. Waking up, Cassian finds Driver already waiting for him. But let's shift for a moment. Over in the Lampa's Republic of Korea branch, Kim-woo visits Lee. And Lee, despite being a grown man, is crying and whining. Why? Because his sword isn't the same anymore. Makes sense. Cassian had extracted the crystals from it, leaving nothing but plain metal. Back at Villezone, Driver tells Cassian he punished those responsible for that disgraceful incident during the test. Chaiha even prepared a special dish for Cassian, just like last time, commemorating his rise as Gadam District's Villezone boss. Cassian, though, is confused. After the test, he was supposed to fight Driver, but Driver forfeited. In fact, Driver even declared he'd accept being Cassian's puppet if that's what it took to make him boss. Now comes the moment of truth. Cassian needs a villain name. Without hesitation, he steps forward and says, Cassian. The room goes silent. Chaiha and Driver are stunned. That name belonged to the top psyker, who no longer exists. But for our boy, Cassian is his real name, and it's the identity of a villain who craves revenge. Now that Cassian's officially the boss of Villezone, the pressure's on. He has to get even stronger if he's serious about pursuing revenge against Lampas. Funny enough, he even forgot about Moros's quest until Moros reminded him about the exterminator sword. Meanwhile, at Soei High School, the girls were buzzing about the new Villezone boss. Naun couldn't resist sneaking a peek, and when she saw him, she realized her savior had truly become the boss for real. Elsewhere, Black Hand and Crush were talking about Cassian too. They couldn't wrap their heads around why he chose Cassian as his villain name. Crush explained it might be tied to a floating superstition. If you take the name of a dead psyker as your villain name, you can gain new strength. Down in the Gadam District's Villezone basement training area, Cassian was grinding hard. He doubled his training sessions, working out twice a day. Even Moros was worried he might push his body too far. That's when Driver approached him with urgent news, an emergency meeting. Turns out, the ones confined in the punishment room, Dwack and Pointer, escaped. They headed straight to Boxen District's Villezone. There, they met a villain openly plotting to crush Driver's Villezone. Or should I say, Cassian's Villezone now. These villains weren't acting alone. They were sent by Barracuda, an S-rank villain with or attribute powers. Not only that, Barracuda is the boss of Boxen's Villezone. Cassian now sits down for a meeting with the other villains. In the Gadam District's Villezone, there are about 400 residents. Out of those, 100 are villains, and the rest are bums and homeless people. The big news? Dwack and Pointer, who escaped from the punishment room, have been confirmed to be moving together. Within Seoul, there are 4 Villezones, and the 2 headed straight to Boxen's Villezone. Driver explained that relations with that district aren't exactly friendly. Cassian now fully understands the situation, especially after learning about the boss there, Barracuda, an S-rank villain. Driver reassures him not to be intimidated just because Barracuda holds that rank. Truth is, Barracuda relies heavily on items. His most prized possession? Barracuda's canines. There's even a rumor that he uses a real magic crystal. That caught Cassian's attention immediately. If he could get his hands on that crystal, his strength would multiply several times over. But here's here's the problem. If they face Boxen's Vilzone head-on, they'll be outnumbered. That district has way too many villains, and most of them are higher ranking. Before the meeting could even wrap up, Cassian decided to leave. Why? Because it's midterm exams, and he needs to study. Now we shift to Kim Woo, who invited Psyker apprentice Seo Ji-ho. Since Kim Woo wants to become an active Psyker, Ji-ho told him he should have gone to a Psyker training school instead of a normal high school. But Kim Woo explained it was his father's wish. Ji-ho then suggested maybe Kim Woo could become an S-rank Psyker like his deceased father. Before he could continue, Kim Woo cut him off. Here's the thing, being in the top 30 strongest in the world is what defines a top-class Psyker. That's Kim Woo's goal, to become one of them so he can take revenge on powerful villains. Ji-ho already knew that goal was nearly impossible for a supporter like him, but Kim Woo tried to motivate him, pointing out that among the top classes, there's at least one supporter. Ji-ho even mentioned Kim Woo's recent achievement, capturing Bloodrian. With that, he might have a chance. But before Kim Woo could explain he wasn't the one who captured Bloodrian, he got a message from his sister. He even invited Ji-ho to come along to meet her. Finally, we shift to Boxen District's Vilzone punishment room. Barracuda approaches a cell where a villain is locked up, and honestly, this guy is creepy. Barracuda tells him he's going to give him a new toy. Once they reach Gadam District, he'll find it there. The villain gets excited, especially since Gadam is his hometown. Barracuda releases him, ordering him to head there and have fun with the new toys waiting. Naun met up with Min Young, who's recovered pretty well. The two started walking toward the bookstore, since that's where Naun and her brother agreed to meet. Min Young, being the sweet cutie she is, brought a gift for Naun's brother. She always pays back kindness with kindness. Inside the bookstore, Naun did something hilarious. She started smelling one of the books. I swear, this manhwa is full of lunatics, huh? Then she went searching for a specific title. She finally spotted it, Korean Cuisine Made Super Simple. But before her hand could reach it, Cassian was already there, grabbing it first. Their eyes met, and Cassian was relieved to see Min Young doing fine now. To avoid raising suspicions, he handed the book to Naun. Still, Naun couldn't help but feel something was off. Meanwhile, let's shift to the bullies. Ki-hun was having a boring day until a villain approached him holding a gift box. This wasn't just any villain, it was the one Barracuda sent to play with his toys. An A-rank villain known as Toy Maker. He wanted Ki-hun to take the gift, but when Ki-hun refused, Toy Maker refused his refusal. He used his skill gift time, forcing the box onto Ki-hun's face. Suddenly, Ki-hun transformed into a monster, or better yet, a toy under Toy Maker's control. Back at the bookstore, Naun and Min Young finally met her brother along with Ji-ho. Naun happily gave her brother the book he was looking for. Even Ji-ho was shocked to learn that Kim Woo's hobby is cooking. Naun then turned back and noticed Cassian talking with a store employee, who told him the book he wanted had just sold out. But then chaos erupted. A loud crash shattered the store's glass, and in-stormed a toy villain. And guess who it was? Ki-hun, twisted into toy form, smashing his way inside. Driver, watching the news, immediately recognized who was behind the chaos. 3 years ago, Toy Maker had nearly been destroyed by Driver himself. And now, here he was again, causing trouble. Back to the action, Ki-hun, under Toy Maker's control, opened his gift head box and unleashed multiple toys at the group. Kim Woo and Ji-ho managed to take down 2 of them, but then a small fish-shaped toy darted straight toward Naun. Cassian didn't hesitate. He grabbed a book and smacked it into the ground, protecting the girls. Kim Woo, not realizing the villain in front of him was just a civilian being controlled, prepared to attack. Before his fire could burst out, Cassian rushed in to stop him. He explained the situation. This dummy wasn't the real villain, just a citizen under Toy Maker's control. Cassian, recalling his days as a Psyker, told Kim Woo what Tuppence Schiller had once taught him. The most fundamental rule for all Psykers is to ensure the safety of civilians. Think rationally, keep your composure. Kim Woo, mid-fight, couldn't understand how Cassian knew the basic rules of Psykers. Still, he pushed Ki-hun back, giving Ji-ho the chance to use his support skill Restore. With that, Ji-ho dispelled Toy Maker's control, reverting Ki-hun back to normal. And when Cassian saw Ki-hun's face, he casually threw his book at him. You already know why. Outside, the situation was escalating. More civilians were being controlled by Toy Maker, wreaking havoc everywhere. Toy Maker noticed one of his toys had been beaten down and decided to pay them a visit. But before he could, Driver entered the scene to confront him. And let me tell you, Toy Maker is the creepiest villain yet. The moment he saw Driver, he got excited, saying he wanted to rip out Driver's shining eyes. Toy Maker lunged forward, but Driver countered instantly. The shocker? That wasn't even the real Toy Maker. It was just one of his toys. Meanwhile, Barracuda and his crew were watching the chaos unfold. Rockhand was itching to jump jump in right away, while the others started picking their targets for the upcoming clash in Gadam District. Ice Demon didn't care who he fought, as long as he could freeze everything. Barracuda himself chose Driver as his opponent. Smoker Woman wanted a duel against Crow. And Black Ghost? He set his sights on Cassian, curious about him, especially since they share the same attribute. Back in the city, civilians were still being controlled, attacking left and right. Kim Woo and Ji-ho were working hard to restore them back to normal. Ji-ho wanted to wait for backup, but Kim Woo disagreed. Waiting would only mean more casualties. Cassian was informed by Driver that Toy Maker was the one behind all this. He wanted to slip away and change into his villain form, but Naun and Minyoung called out to him, insisting he stay with them since it was too dangerous to move alone. Looks like our boy's plan just got interrupted. From behind, Toy Maker appeared, aiming to turn the two girls into his toys. Cassian jumped in, saving them just in time. Next, Toy Maker set his sights on Kim Woo, determined to make him his next toy. As Toy Maker sprinted forward, Kim Woo countered with his flare skill. But Toy Maker hurled a gift box, releasing a small fish that launched a water stream, completely nullifying Kim Woo's fire. Cornered, it looked like the end for him. But then, out of nowhere, someone threw a cell phone at Toy Maker, catching him off guard. That opening was all Kim Woo needed. He charged in and delivered a strong fire punch directly to the villain. Toy Maker was slammed to the ground by that punch. The cell phone that stopped him? It was Kim Woo's phone, hurled at insane speed by none other than his sister, Naun. But that's not all. Both Cassian and Moros noticed a faint energy around Naun's hand. That means her powers are about to awaken. Still, the one they just defeated wasn't the real Toy Maker. It was only another toy. That's when the real Toy Maker finally revealed himself. Now let's shift for a moment to Lampas's Republic of South Korea branch. Lee and his boss received Ji-ho's emergency call and rushed out to provide support. Lee's boss is Ham Ji-sun, an A+ rank psyker with physics attribute. The moment Ji-sun saw Toy Maker, a villain who vanished for 3 years suddenly reappearing, she instantly deduced the truth. Someone is plotting a fight between districts to seize authority over both. And she's right. What can I say? A genius is a genius. Back to the fight. Driver's drones swarmed the area while Toy Maker hurled multiple gift boxes at Kim Woo. Kim Woo dodged skillfully, but the boxes exploded, covering him in sticky bindings. Soon enough, he would have been turned into another toy. Cassian shouted at Ji-ho to stop standing around and use his abilities. Ji-ho responded, activating restoration and dispelling the stickies from Kim Woo's body. Toy Maker then targeted Ji-ho, but Kim Woo stepped in, pushing the villain back. Kim Woo unleashed a flurry of punches, but Toy Maker dodged them all and managed to grab him. It looked like the end, but suddenly, a shadow knife burst from behind, followed by shadowy threads that immobilized Toy Maker. That opening gave Kim Woo the chance to deliver the fatal blow. With Toy Maker down, Kim Woo realized it was Cassian, the villain, who had provided the crucial help. And to make things even more interesting, Driver, watching from the top of a building, saw it too. He saw Cassian in his human form lending that help. The next morning, the news was buzzing and Ji-sun was front and center, giving her opinion on the recent incident. She explained how the Vilzone system was designed to prove villains could be socially controlled. Statistically, cities with Vilzones have lower crime rates than those without. But in the end, she pointed out this incident happened because of Vilzone's negligence. Hearing that, Kim Woo got furious. He and Ji-ho were the ones who stopped Toy Maker, yet the truth wasn't being told. His anger grew even more when he thought about it. Why would a villain help people? And worse, that villain's name was Cassian. Meanwhile, Driver met up with Garnet and his companions, Aroma and Hote. With war against Boxen looming, Driver wanted intel on the other Vilzones in Seoul. Garnet confirmed they were quiet, like dead mice. But he warned it wouldn't last. They'd face the same chaos soon enough. Driver reassured them, saying they had an invisible weapon. And yes, that weapon is none other than our boy. Garnet and the others were stunned when they heard the new boss was still dealing with midterm exams. Back at Gadam High School, Cassian was on a call with his sister. She was worried about him after the last incident, but he assured her he was fine and focused on studying. Just then, Kim Woo approached, so Cassian ended the call, promising to call her later. On Yuri's side, Sean approached her with news. The general manager was back from his business trip and wanted to meet her. When she went to meet him, he welcomed her politely and even apologized for calling her in. He introduced himself as Vincent. And let me warn you, Yandra alert. The next morning, Kim Woo approached Cassian to thank him for what happened yesterday. He admitted Cassian's courage and how calm he was in assessing the situation and acting on it. Even as a psyker, Kim Woo said he should learn from this Kwon Kong Woo. Then, with a serious expression, he handed handed Cassian a gift from his sister. He insisted Cassian cherish it, because besides him, his sister had never given a guy a present before. Cassian opened it, and sure enough, it was the Korean cuisine made super simple book. Meanwhile, over at Gadam's Zone, Driver and Crow were busy setting up traps and barricades, preparing for Boxen's inevitable assault. Just then, Cassian arrived fresh from finishing his midterms. He didn't stay long, though. He had business with Chaiha. Inside the Heaven pub, Cassian asked to buy all the high-quality magical stones Chaiha had. Chaiha led him into a secret room, revealing 5 stones. Cassian wanted more, but Chaiha explained that someone else had recently bought a large quantity to give away. Cassian immediately tried to bargain, asking for a 20% discount since he was buying them all. When Chaiha refused, Cassian pushed back, saying he'd buy 4 and take 1 for free. Realizing how stubborn Cassian was, Chaiha agreed to the original deal, but only if Cassian paid the full amount in cash. No problem. Cassian came prepared. Back when he was a psyker, he created a secret Swiss bank account under the name Cassian. And let's just say that account was loaded. After the purchase, even Chaiha got curious about how Cassian managed to get that kind of money. Meanwhile, Naun and Minyoung were enjoying parfaits together. Naun asked if Minyoung knew where that guy from yesterday had gone. Remember, Cassian slipped in to help Kim Woo, and Naun saw him disappear. Now she's certain. Her savior, the shadowy villain, is Cassian. Naun went to the bathroom, but from behind she was followed by Black Ghost. As she walked, she wondered what would happen if she exposed Cassian's real identity. That's when Black Ghost appeared, disguised in the image of our boy, and captured her. He then approached Minyoung, handing her a message to deliver to Kim Woo. Back at Gadam's Zone, Black Hand and his crew were shocked to see barricades set up. Black Hand, being reckless, stepped forward without thinking about the traps. Just then, Kim Woo dashed in, desperate to find his little sister. Black Hand lunged to stop him, but Kim Woo warned him to move aside. In that moment, both Kim Woo and Black Hand got caught in traps. What can I say? These guys are really idiots. Inside the personal training room, Cassian ingested the 5 high-quality magical crystals he had bought. But even after that, he didn't feel much of a power boost. Moros used the Eye of Insight and confirmed Cassian's spell power had reached 860. This proved Moro's earlier point. High-quality magic stones aren't worth their monetary value anymore. Real magic stones are a different story. Still, Cassian remained unaware that during his last rampage, his spell power had exceeded 2,000. Then he noticed numbers appearing next to some of his skills. Moros explained that meant his skills had been strengthened. For example, Cassian could now use 2 shadow knives at once as a shield. Curious, Cassian tried something new skill combination. He summoned a shadow knife the size of his hand, then added the dual attribute skill Dark Flame to its tip. And it worked. Even Moros was shocked Cassian could pull this off so early. It reminded him of Jeff's words. Cassian's potential ranks among the best of the top-class psykers. Black Ghost dragged Naun back to Boxan, and here's the reveal. This was all part of Barracuda's plan. The goal: frame Cassian, the new boss of Gadam's Zone, for kidnapping a psyker's family member. Once Gadam is isolated, Boxan will strike. Back in Gadam, Kim Woo was tied up when word spread that Naun had been kidnapped by Cassian. Our boy made it clear he wasn't the one behind it. Driver knew immediately this was a dirty trick from Boxan. He pointed out they'd be attacking soon, but first, they had to clear up this misunderstanding. Cassian ordered Kim Woo to be freed. Later, in Driver's room, they reviewed drone footage from Boxan. Thankfully, Driver had eyes there already. The truth came out. It was Black Ghost, using his transformation skill, who kidnapped Naun. Cassian, now fired up, was determined to teach them a lesson. Kim Woo asked Cassian to let him join since he had to save his sister. Driver and Crow agreed to tag along too. Then Black Hand and his crew stormed in, demanding to join the mission as well. Cassian, being the boss, didn't stop them. Still, there was something that needed to be addressed first, something concerning Kim Woo. Meanwhile, at La Vie en Rose Hotel, Garnet was obsessing over his jewelry collection. The guy was so wrapped up in it that Aroma and Hote straight up called him trash. Garnet then got a call, promising he'd take care of something. That night, the villains reached Boxen District's Zone. The stage was set, villains against villains. And here's where things get even more interesting. A new face enters the fray. Let me introduce you to the newbie villain, Red Mask. The Red Mask is none other than Kim Woo. Cassian, being a former psyker, knew full well that a psyker fighting alongside villains would look suspicious. To protect Kim Woo's reputation, he asked him to wear the mask. Drivers started mapping out the shortest route to their destination. To Cassian, the key to victory was clear: a fast ambush and a fearless attack. attack. He began assigning roles. Driver would scout the front. Cassian himself would infiltrate and annihilate the enemy, with Crow covering his back. Red Mask would guard the rear. That triggered Black Hand, since Cassian basically ignored him and his crew. But Cassian gave them a role too, securing a retreat route while the mission was underway. In other words, for now they were told to do nothing. Kim Woo then remembered something from his Psyker training. Someone once patted his head and told him, "The way to victory is a fast ambush and a fearless attack." That person? None other than Cassian himself, back when he was a top-class Psyker. Hearing the same words now, Kim Woo realized, even though Cassian was reborn, his personality hadn't changed. Driver used his ability to take control of all the surveillance cameras at the front, and then the team charged forward. Meanwhile, Naun, locked in a prison, finally woke up. Somehow, she knew the one who kidnapped her wasn't Cassian, but someone else. Back in Gadam, Black Hand was still furious about being sidelined. Double Blade shifted the topic, asking his friends if Cassian's orders didn't feel Psyker-like. That suspicion could be dangerous. Cassian's secret might be exposed. Just then, Jwack and Pointer entered the scene, blowing the party's cover. But instead of realizing it was an ambush, Jwack assumed they were there to surrender. And then Rockhand showed up. Instead of playing it cool and buying time, Black Hand went full idiot mode. He wanted to pick a fight. That reckless move meant the others would quickly realize something was off. Rockhand stepped forward, covering his arm with jagged rocks, ready to take on all three of them at once. Black Hand, not backing down, coated his arms with steel, preparing to engage. Meanwhile, Barracuda sat on his chair like some self-proclaimed king, reflecting on the time when all the district bosses had gathered. Back then, Barracuda pitched his idea of merging all the vill zones in Seoul. When Driver asked why, Barracuda's answer was simple: unite all villains to become stronger. But his ambition didn't stop at the country. He wanted the whole world. Before he could finish, Driver shut him down immediately. Keep in mind, Driver is a villain, but he knows where to draw the line. He understands where evil can be done and where it must not cross. The other two bosses agreed with Driver as well. Back in the day, Driver warned Barracuda to back off, or he'd get hurt. And now we see why Barracuda is stirring all this chaos. Just then, Lent's girl approached Barracuda, informing him about the 3 B-rank villains from Gadam. Barracuda knew Rockhand could handle them, but he suspected something deeper. He realized those 3 were just bait. Now Barracuda was fully aware. His district was under attack by Gadam. He ordered Lent's girl to look elsewhere. Meanwhile, our party reached the stronghold where Boxen's leading members were gathered. Before heading inside, Driver unveiled his new tech, a sub-miniature drone. Crow's eyes lit up immediately, asking for one too. And let me say, the vibes between Driver and Crow are something worth watching. Suddenly, smoke surrounded them. They were caught. Smoker Woman had arrived. Crow immediately shifted her focus toward her, clearly recognizing this was her fight. She told her friends to go on without her. She'd catch up once she finished dealing with Smoker. Before parting, Driver reminded Crow to hurry back, his concern for her obvious. Now alone, Crow could unleash her full power. Using her Raven ability, she summoned her cane, ready to engage Smoker Woman in battle. Cassian and the crew stormed into the main building, only to be blocked by Shark Tooth and a squad of villains. Our boy took the lead, cutting through them with ease. But Shark Tooth wasn't fazed. Cassian's punches barely dented him. Then Shark Tooth lunged, biting into Cassian's arm. Cassian instantly shifted into shadow form, slipping behind him, and delivered one devastating blow that knocked Shark Tooth down. Watching this, Kim Woo realized something. Cassian was getting stronger every single time he saw him. From there, the team split. Driver and Cassian would press forward to confront Boxen's leaders, while Kim Woo was tasked with saving his sister. Driver handed him a tracking location to guide the way. More villains appeared from behind, but Driver stayed back to handle them, leaving Cassian to advance alone. Meanwhile, in the women's duel, Smoker unleashed Death Breath. Crow, agile and sharp, dodged the smoke with skill. Smoker followed up with Death Chain Breath, but Crow countered with her cane, activating Crow Peekaboo. The crow's head on the cane opened its beak and devoured the deadly smoke entirely. Smoker attacked again, and though Crow dodged, her machine Raven was destroyed in the process. That Raven wasn't just a tool, it was something precious, crafted for her by Driver. Surrounded by the lethal smoke, Crow knew one breath would stop her blood flow and burn her lungs. Furious at seeing her Raven destroyed, she unleashed her dark ability, forcing the smoke to vanish. Her rage boiled over. From now on, Smoker would be judged by the way of the Crow. Out of nowhere, a giant dark Raven emerged, its wings spreading wide as Crow prepared to fight with her full fury. Kim Woo finally reached the basement where his sister was being held, only to be immobilized by Ice Demon. But he broke free using his fire skill. And now we've got a clash worth watching. Fire versus Ice, who's coming out on top. Meanwhile, Cassian reached the 12th floor. Black Ghost was hiding in the shadows, but Cassian called him out. Black Ghost revealed he'd been following Cassian, showering him with compliments, saying he respected him and wanted to be like him. In other words, Black Ghost is a stalker, a crazy bastard if you ask me. Wielding his double-edged weapon, Black Ghost activated Shadow Doppelganger, creating 3 copies of himself. Cassian unleashed shadow knives, cutting down the decoys, then dashed straight toward the real one. But the villain dodged, retreating deeper into the shadows. Cassian used his own shadow skill to move faster, giving Black Ghost no chance to counter or escape. Then Black Ghost destroyed the lights on the floor, plunging everything into darkness. In that moment, he attacked, and Cassian was almost too slow to react, nearly getting hit. When it comes to fighting in darkness, Black Ghost reigns supreme. But Cassian only smiled. He surrounded himself with his aura, speaking of how he died and was reborn. His energy began to float across the entire floor, farming the aura around him. And in an instant, Cassian appeared behind Black Ghost, his presence overwhelming, his power radiating through the shadows. Kim Woo and Ice Demon clashed in the basement, fire and ice colliding in a storm of destruction. Kim Woo struggled. He couldn't find any opening to exploit. Ice Demon taunted him with twisted words, talking about how thrilling it was to freeze people limb by limb. Losing his composure, Kim Woo called him a disgusting villain, forgetting he was supposed to be posing as one himself. That slip made Ice Demon suspicious. The hostage's older brother was a psyker, so the one in front of him had to be Kim Woo. Before his cover could be blown, Kim Woo declared himself Gadam's strongest villain, Red Mask. The fight resumed, fire against ice, each strike shaking the basement. As they battled, Kim Woo recalled hours earlier when Cassian had taught him something crucial. Cassian pointed out that Kim Woo's delay between attacks was too long. He got distracted mid-fight. To demonstrate, Cassian used Combustion of Darkness, showing how an attack should be executed. Fast, relentless, giving the opponent no chance to react or counter. He even explained how Kim Woo's ignition skill worked, since Cassian had wielded it before. His final advice? Think outside the box. Back in the fight, Kim Woo applied those lessons. His attacks grew faster, forcing Ice Demon to dodge instead of counter. But then Kim Woo got careless. Ice Demon froze his midsection. As the villain reached to rip off his helmet, Naun screamed for help. Ice Demon hurled an ice spear toward her. In that desperate moment, Kim Woo's fire exploded. Determined to protect his sister, he rose and unleashed Hellfire, a massive fire explosion that shook the basement. Meanwhile, Barracuda was approached by Cassian, dragging Black Ghost with him. At the entrance to Gadam's Ville Zone, Red Eye stood guard alongside Garnet and his cuties. Chaiha soon joined them, casually bringing pizza. He asked Garnet for his thoughts on the situation. Garnet didn't mince words. Driver doesn't take deals that would cost him his life. Clearly, Garnet knows Driver well, maybe even hiding something. Meanwhile, Driver had finished off the villains blocking their path and was waiting for Crow. When she arrived, she was overjoyed to see him waiting. Then she noticed the destroyed Raven machine he had built for her. Thankfully, Driver reassured her he could fix it. But seeing the wreckage, he realized Crow must have unleashed her hidden power. Before they could continue, the ground shook violently, the result of Cassian's battle upstairs. Black Ghost had already been defeated and Barracuda, furious at his failure, punched him aside without hesitation. This boss clearly treats his allies with zero respect. When Barracuda raised his weapon, Moros immediately warned Cassian. Those canines were forged from a real magical stone. Barracuda got cocky, claiming Driver was the one worthy of fighting him, not a rookie like Cassian. But Cassian fired back. Barracuda tried to frame him, so now it was only right he got his ass beat. Barracuda activated his or skill, summoning metal spears behind his back before dashing forward. Cassian moved with insane speed, countering with a strong punch, then another. But Barracuda tanked both hits, grabbed Cassian, and smashed his head before sending him flying. Keeping the momentum, Barracuda dashed again. Cassian dodged, but Barracuda reacted instantly, pressing the attack. Cassian tried to counter, but Barracuda unleashed his canines. Large metal spikes erupted, blocking Cassian's advance and even scratching his face. Barracuda unleashed Homing Skewer, spikes of metal that twisted midair, tracking Cassian wherever he moved. But our boy dodged them all, weaving through the barrage with insane precision. Even as the pressure mounted, he kept slipping past every strike. Barracuda got cocky, boasting that no matter what Cassian threw at him, it would be meaningless. Cassian fired back. At most, you're just following your opponent's movements. That means you've only fought against the weak. He even reminded Barracuda of what Driver had said, that the so-called S-rank villain was heavily reliant on his items. Losing his composure, Barracuda dashed in, spamming Homing Skewer again. Cassian slid across the ground, dodging the spikes, then kicked Barracuda into the air. He followed up, dodging the counter, and used shadow knives to immobilize neutralize him. In a flash, Cassian activated Shadow Transfer, reappearing behind his opponent. Barracuda broke free, but Cassian kept the momentum, launching Combustion of Darkness. Barracuda was forced to defend with Shield of Thorns. Shocked, he realized Cassian wielded two attributes. Furious, Barracuda unleashed another wave of spikes from his canine's weapon. But Cassian had already adapted. Barracuda's attack patterns were obvious. Finally, Cassian landed a clean hit. Bored of dragging this out, he decided to finish it quickly. Rage-baiting his opponent, he taunted that the result had been set from the beginning. Barracuda, blinded by fury, charged in with Hell of Thorns. Cassian conjured a massive dark greatsword, cleaving through the spikes, and then in one brutal strike he cut Barracuda's arms clean off. Barracuda, now armless, swore revenge, but that's only if Cassian let him live. Before Cassian could finish him, Lent's girl interfered, firing a beam that pushed Cassian back. The shocking part, Cassian hadn't even sensed her presence. She grabbed Barracuda, opened a jump place portal, and escaped with him. Cassian's focus shifted immediately to Barracuda's canines. Inside them was a real magic stone, and he needed to extract it. Soon, Driver and Crow arrived, finding Cassian already waiting. Cassian explained what had happened, and Driver reassured him. Kim Woo and his sister were safe, already on their way out. But there was still work to do. Black Hand and the others needed backup. Driver chose to stay behind, telling Cassian and Crow to move forward without him. Meanwhile, Lent's girl explained to Barracuda that his arms could be restored. She opened another portal to retrieve them, but waiting on the other side was Driver. He ambushed her, knocking her down, and entered the portal himself. And just like that, it was truly over for Barracuda. Driver immediately activated Limit Break. The surge of energy was overwhelming, revealing he had been hiding his true power all along. Now for some lore, Limit is a rare ability. A small minority of villains can set limits on their mana. By doing so, they suppress the urges that drive most villains insane, allowing them to remain rational. But once those limits are released, their original strength returns, often with dangerous side effects. Applying a limit isn't the same as awakening. It's a deliberate restraint, a weaponized seal. And now, Driver has broken his limit. As Black Hand was struggling, Cassian stepped in and dropped Rock Hand with a single kick. With the traitors gathered, it was time to teach them a lesson. Pointer quickly dragged Dwack away, escaping, though in truth, Cassian had spared them. Meanwhile, Driver confronted Barracuda directly. He demanded to know who had framed Cassian for murder, and who was pulling the strings to control all 4 Vil zones in the country. Despite taking a powerful strike from Driver, Lent's girl managed to survive. She opened a portal, summoning the true masterminds behind the recent chaos. Behold, the S-rank villain Don King and his guard. Don made it clear he wasn't here to fight. He was here to collect his subordinates, even if they were incompetent. Then he revealed his true ambition, not just to dominate this country, but to control every Vil zone in the world. It was then revealed, Don King is one of the 4 masters of evil. He even extended an invitation to Driver to join his crew. Driver refused instantly, warning Don that if he ever laid a hand on his friends, he would be the one to regret it. Back in Gadam District, Cassian held the Real Mana Stone he had extracted from Barracuda's weapon. Moros explained, a Mana Stone taken from a weapon holds slightly less raw mana than an unprocessed one, but it retains the weapon's unique properties. By absorbing it, Cassian would inherit the traits of Barracuda's canines. Cassian absorbed the stone, and with that, the day of his revenge drew closer. The news praised Gadam's Vil Zone for defeating the Northern District, even spotlighting the new villain, Red Mask. But behind the headlines, Lee pressed Kim Woo about his sister. When Kim Woo revealed the truth, that the Northern Vil Zone was behind Naun's kidnapping, Lee grew suspicious. More shocking still, Kim Woo let villains help him. Meanwhile, chaos brewed inside Gadam's Vil Zone. Villains panicked, complaining about stolen machines, radios, and TVs. The culprit? Driver's limit break side effects. According to Red Eye, this time was better than the last. Driver had literally dragged an engine from outside the Vil Zone and built something massive and completely useless. An unmanned spacecraft bound for Mars. What can I say, these villains really make him laugh. Cassian, however, wasn't laughing. He pressed Moros about Jeff's death. Moros explained it was tied to the Sword of Annihilation. The only key to finding it was the Platinum Disc, currently in Don's hands. That sword grants the power to take over the world. Across the ocean in America, Yuri messaged Cassian, worried about him. Then she bumped into Vincent. He smiled unbothered, as Yuri helped him sort through some things. Curious, she asked about a picture nearby. The man in the photo, none other than Jeff. What can I say? Our story is far from over, however. For now, Season 1 ends here.